Hello there, dear listener. We have a special release for you this week. A few months back, we were invited onto the Escapuzzled podcast, where Corey and Helena, who are wonderful, grilled us about our puzzling intentions, and we had a good discussion about escape room design as well. Now, I won't lie, we'd all had a few beers and meads, and so the original episode is over 2 hours long, and that's after it being cut down. We currently hold the record for the most overstayed welcome on the Escapuzzled podcast, which I'm weirdly proud of. So here's the second half of that interview. The first was just blissful chaos. So if you want to hear just how far we can stretch the definition of the phrase quickfire, head on over to the full episode on the Escapuzzled podcast. There'll be a link in the show notes for you. But in the meantime, enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Escapuzzled podcast, your one-stop shop for all things escape rooms, immersive entertainment, and tabletop needs. My name is Corey, and I am your host as always, and joining me this evening, as always, is Helena.
Hello, Corey. It's lovely to hear you.
Hello. Hope you're well.
Hello. I'm very well.
And we also have, joining us today, Mike, Jon, and Jamie from the Infinite Escape Room podcast, which started back in late 2018. The Infinite Escape Room podcast is a podcast in which four geographically diverse chums come together to solve an escape room of the ears. Only this escape room is never ending, and each room blends seamlessly into the next. We've not really gotten into how or why you got into specifically audio escape rooms. What is your background, your origin story for the Infinite Escape?
Well, this is a question for Mike.
So it's not a particularly neat story, this. The audio side of it just basically comes from a love of radio comedy for me. Absolutely adore, particularly BBC radio comedy, particularly the old stuff, which was a bit weird and a bit crap, and the weird crap game shows and things that they do. And I really, really love it. And it's kind of, people outside of the UK probably won't know this, but like lots of comedians that you'll see on TV now, most of them cut their teeth on sort of radio comedy and stuff. So I've been listening ever since I was a kid. Absolutely loved it, and have made various little kind of silly internet radio shows and things over the years, including one that was a podcast before podcasts were podcasts. I've checked the dates. I published MP3s to an RSS feed before podcast term was officially coined.
Wow.
And including some stuff that was unbelievably, I now realise, cancelable, which I recorded with Jon. Which we'll not go into in too much detail here again, because, continued employment. It was great fun, and I maintain it's still quite funny.
Oh, it is funny, but...
Yeah, it's not great, is it? But yeah, so sort of big thing of that. And then for Jon's stag was looking at things to do in and around London, and came across escape rooms. Hadn't done one before, and just so happened to land on, well, I say just happened, did a lot of research, and then landed on one that was brilliant. It was Enigma Quest's £1 Million Heist.
Yeah.
And it absolutely blew me away.
Like, it just hold on now, that one.
It was a great room. It was absolutely fantastic, and we came out of it absolutely buzzing. And I was like, oh my god, escape rooms! And I was looking into them more, trying to do more of them. And then around the same time, Ben, who's not with us today, he's had to take a step back from producing.
Sounds like he's passed, putting it that way.
I mean, he's basically dead to me now, I think.
Wow.
We were at a beer festival.
I just realised that the icon for this episode is going to be a gravestone. I'm Ben.
We were at a beer festival, and Ben was like, "Oh, I want to do a podcast." As people say at beer festivals when they're smashed,
when they're realising white guys in their mid-30s. To be fair,
unfortunately, I just hit the optimum whiteness and mid-30ness to follow through. And after having followed through at the beer festival in Portaloo, I then followed through on the podcast. And to Ben, I was like, Ben, what do you want to make on this podcast? And Ben was like, I don't know, I thought you'd figure that out. So I was like, okay. And then, I think that night I was sort of like, okay, put two things together, podcast, escape rooms. We recorded the pilot, which has subsequently gone from the internet just because...
There is a bit in the middle here, in the middle of that, where he calls me and we discuss it at length and hone the idea, but he's left that part out. That's fine.
It sounds like you got back from a beer festival and just winged it.
That was exactly it. That was exactly it. I came up with my idea on the toilet.
I wasn't involved for the first one. You did, yeah. You called me and you were like, I've got this idea, and we kind of chewed it over at length.
I have no memory of that. Oh my god, I know it's coming. I was at work.
Wow.
I stepped outside for work to give you.
Yeah. We've been friends for a long time. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh man, whoops. Probably. Why didn't I know Jamie then? We just sort of started making it really, not really much of an idea what we were doing, but we were kind of feeling it as we went. I did some horizon scanning, i.e. a very quick Googling on the internet, and couldn't find anything else like it. It's hilarious because I somehow managed to miss this absolutely massive fucking podcast called Escape This Podcast, who are huge and successful with 10 million squillion listeners and a trillion patrons and the Queen on every other week, along with Neil Patrick Harris, right, and other celebrity guests, incredibly well established and incredibly graciously invited us on to solve one of theirs pretty early on. Yeah, just sort of cracked on with it there. It was a good way. We've got lots of sort of nerd pals around the place, so we kind of used it as a way to get in touch or keep in touch with a pretty geographically diverse group of friends because we're spread across England and Wales and all sorts. And then it just sort of scaled up, and we kind of honed it and refined it. And then more people came onto the production team. So Jon joined us a couple of years in, early COVID, I think it was, Jon.
Downhill from there.
As a point, when did our listener numbers peak? And then Jamie joined the production team. Or as well, let's think of it, the recovery. And suddenly our social media got significantly less crap because I was no longer doing it. And our episodes got both well-researched and good puzzles in. Actually, everything got better when Jamie came in. Basically, I'm willing the podcast to Jamie when I pass. And yeah, it was kind of during COVID. Oh, sorry, and Jon. During COVID.
Cheers.
It was
nice.
It was really good because it was kind of like a lifeline to a lot of people. Well, not to a lot of people, but to us as a kind of like a friend group because it was like a little project that we were all working on.
But crucially to Jamie first, that lifeline. Just
anyway, yeah, and we were just kind of we felt it out as we went. We've been going for about 350 episodes now, I think.
Yeah.
Are we the most prolific escape room creators on the planet? Having made 300 plus rooms in 5 years?
Please don't say prolific.
I've said it. We are prolific in the same way that Henry VIII was a prolific relationship advisor.
I guess that one final thing I would add is that the it's changed format 4 times now. Initially, that was honing it and sort of seeing the elements of it that weren't very reliable or that just didn't work particularly well, and then chopping and changing. But beyond that, it's been basically a response to life events, a response to our changing amount of free time, and just where we're all at really. So it's been quite an adaptable beast, and I think that's been part of the key to its, would I say, success? Survival.
Continued endurement.
Yeah, but I think every year since it started, I've gone, I don't reckon it'll still be going next year. And I think I say that to Jon every year. Like I should have started taking bets. Yeah, you should. You should. Killed it. Yeah, and you're right. We do keep on kind of like adapting it to our lives because I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I find it very satisfying. I enjoy having a project with my pals. I enjoy listening back, which I think is like the real litmus test of whether you've actually made
the episodes that he's on.
Compared to listening back to what you've made. And
this is pretty evident when you guys are writing the puzzles for the next episode and you don't know what the segue is. Occasionally,
transitions are beautiful. I joined the podcast. Like it was a slow transition because I started off as a fan. I was the one on the
Twitter only fan, you might say.
Well, give it time. Yeah, I started off just being someone who enjoyed the podcast, and then eventually sort of ingratiated myself into coming on. I think the first episode that I joined, I did a guest puzzle, and it was awful. It was Mike and Jon. You were both on that first episode. I remember Jon at one point doing the puzzle, just going, "Oh Christ, this is like pulling teeth." I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do well with these guys." But luckily, they had me back on, and I've slowly weaseled my way into being part of the main crew. So it's just such good fun to make and to listen to, and I'm still enjoying it as a fan as well as a member of the production team, which is great.
As a fan, it has been thoroughly entertaining to see the progression.
Yeah.
To see the change, especially even the change of music or the change of introduction and the way you guys have adapted that over time. Going back to some of the later episodes, you just thank God this changed.
Yeah.
That initial theme tune, man, can we discuss that real quick? The music is fantastic, but it was initially very different to what it is now.
Oh, do you mean the really weird thrashy version?
Yeah.
The one that kind of jolts you out your sleep if you're going to sleep to a podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's on me. Okay, so I commissioned theme tune for us on Fiverr, and it came through.
Or a Fiverr.
And I was like, this is fine. And then I listened to it and I was like, I kind of wanted something a bit more energetic and rocky. I was just learning my audio software. So I was like, I'll just apply every filter to it and see what happens. And then I published some episodes with that. And yeah,
play.
Listening back, I can understand how it is a bit like having a cheese grater shoved in your ear hole.
I mean, I wasn't going to go that far, but...
And, just chilling out, listen to a podcast, have a good snooze. Then the next episode will come on and you'll be like, ah.
See, that,
Very similar.
the very fact of your description there, I'm just going to have a snooze. I listen to a podcast to snooze. We're very different people.
Oh.
If I'm listening to a podcast at night, my brain's in must receive and process all information.
I'm exactly the
And then
same.
think about it at length.
I can't imagine going to sleep listening to a podcast, especially not your guys' podcast. I'd be giggling my tits off in bed trying to sleep. It just would not work.
I just really like to go to sleep to people talking to me, apparently.
I was going to say, we go to sleep listening to No Such Thing as a Fish, and have done
Oh, see,
for the last 10 years, maybe.
Really?
Nice.
mine used to be anything by Stephen Fry, to the point we like Pavlov dogged ourselves into sleeping to Stephen Fry. He released a new book, did you know? And he had a full tour. Me and my husband were like knocking each other, waking each other up throughout the whole show.
Oh, no.
Bear in mind, he did all of the Harry Potters. Yeah.
Imagine being Stephen Fry and you go on stage and there's rapturous applause. And then you open the book you're going to read, like Charles Dickens used to do, and you start to read, and then everyone instantly conks out. And you realize what you are to these people.
I don't know if it's complimentative that people fall asleep to your podcast, or I don't know how to feel about that.
I mean, if it was a current affairs show, I'd think that was a problem. But if it was bedtime stories, ideal. I don't know. I don't know where this lies between those two things.
I've always wanted to do an ASMR episode of the Infinite Escape Room.
A what?
ASMR, not a sex thing, despite what the internet tells you. I think it would be a really fun challenge for just our regulars to try and just keep it down, keep it chill. And when I pitched this idea at the Reality Escape Con when I did it online last year, and a few people was like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'd come on for that." And the people that said yes are the loudest people that I've probably met. No, you are so inappropriate for this. You're in.
I feel like it would just be fun to get the loudest people physically possible on to attempt to make them be quiet.
Yeah.
For this next puzzle, you just need to not go above 6 decibels. Good luck.
Just watch them sweat. All of the audio comes through a pillow just to dampen the sound.
Every episode has a different theme and a full set of puzzles along with it. How do you guys come up with so many different puzzles? And I think very quickly as well, looking at how much you're posting as well.
It probably seems quicker because we're afraid. I think fear definitely registers. I was thinking about this earlier, and I kind of already said it earlier on the recording that the nature of a puzzle is really specific and yet really broad. The puzzle is a question in the room with an answer in the room, and that's it. And obviously on top of that, you've got your logic puzzles and your spatial puzzles and your pattern recognition puzzles and the kind of categories that we sort of all get to know in the escape room world. And this will sound really cynical, but basically you can reskin that shit infinitely. You just can. But that's one level of it. So you can place those problems in any setting and just change the paint job and it will work, right? It will function. And I think we can all think of escape rooms we've played where almost the entire room is derivative with a different theme. But the magic for me is when that interacts with the inspiration for the room, and then your kind of sort of cookie cutter logic puzzle gets a new life because a new element of it gets inspired by the setting you're in a really, really random and hard to predict way. Then you're into truly new and interesting territory, and it kind of, it gets this extra special something. And I think because that's a creativity thing, that doesn't really have an end point. That will always come. Well, not always. Occasionally, it is like pulling teeth. But even if it is like pulling teeth in the creation of the room, you can absolutely rely on your team to screw it up. And in their screwing up of it, they will bring creativity, and then you're fine.
It's a very wholesome
concisely put.
response. Yeah.
After the carnage
And
of
it
the
was-
past hour and 30 minutes, that's not the response I anticipated.
I enjoyed listening to that. Thank you.
I have also just been told that my daughter, who is in the room above me, cannot sleep because I'm being too loud.
Oh, no.
So,
Oh no.
Understandable.
late night with Radio John.
Jamie, you get your wish. We get to do the ASMR episode now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that
Ooh.
means.
It's ASMR.
Exactly the same, just quiet.
It's not a sex thing, John. Don't believe the internet's lies.
I see. But yeah, no, I know that probably sounded like a little cynical, I guess. But for me, the hell of puzzle creation is the blank page.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you just you're going, where do I even begin? I don't have anything. And the answer that I've found is just start writing, even if it's trash, because at some point that trash will interact with other trash in an interesting way. And that might spark something. You're just trying to get something to spark, and you've got to keep putting stuff into it for that to happen. Like, for example, recently, I very nearly had a terrible episode. It was the Helping Heston episode.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, it turned out really well. I was really happy with it in the end. So this was a room in which you are Heston Blumenthal. You, as a group, inhabit his body, and his career is on the slide, and no one likes his dishes anymore, but he can't work out why. So he allows you to take over his body. For when you can't do it like Mike can do it. Mike
Holy shit, Hester fucking Blumenthal's in the call.
But yeah, that was very nearly a car crash, because the day before I had 7 pages of notes and none of them worked.
Oh.
There were ideas about like all 4 of you are Heston, but one of you is the real Heston, and just a load of ideas. Nothing worked. And I tried to explain to Sinead, my wife, and she just looked at me like, "What are you talking about? I don't like. I want to help you, but I can't." And then in that talk to her, it came to me, well, what if he's lost his sense of smell and everything would be wrong, but he wouldn't know why because he'd lost it. And then it sort of all rolled.
Spoiler alert.
And then I called Mike, and Mike helped me like actually bolt it together into puzzles.
And it was a cracking episode.
It was a really
It was a lot of fun.
episode.
Yeah, that was a good fun, but yeah, very, very nearly terrible.
You pulled it back, but then that's so many of our episodes. Though, like, we'll either start with a puzzle or we'll start with a theme. Tend to gravitate towards things that are either deliberately shit because it tickles us to do stuff that's really naff, or that we think will make one another laugh. Because I think like the make each other laugh test is kind of like the big one. Like if we think it's going to make one of the other ones chuckle, or in John's case, he thinks it's going to make somebody actively cringe their nails off in worry for their future employment prospects.
But there's definitely been phases, and Mike, you've said this to me, and I've said this to you. Jamie has never said it because Jamie is an undying well of creativity.
Yeah, Jamie, you're a monster.
I don't know how he does it. But like both me and Mike, and I know Ben too, formerly of this parish, Ben, for all of us, like have had phases where it just feels like a grind. And even when that's happened to me, though, and like I finally got the shape of it in front of me, and I get through the recording, and I am starting to think, is this worth it? That was just a source of stress. I do the recording, and I have the best time. I have so much fun. And then afterwards, I'm like, what was I worried about? That was brilliant fun.
Is there any times it's gone the other way?
Once.
We like to get all the juiciest gossip here on the Escapuzzled podcast.
Mike, I'm not going to tell them the content, okay? Is that all
I'm
right?
trying to work out which one you're referring to.
No. You'll know the one. So I had an episode.
Is this the ghost episode?
No. This episode exists, but this exists, and you will never know, listening to it, that anything was ever wrong.
Oh, this one.
Yes. So there was an episode, and I had gone with a really, really quite spicy reference to current affairs. And the team didn't really sort of latch onto it or get it because it was kind of periphery to the whole thing. But at one point, one of the team members, who is an ethical, upstanding, decent chap who no longer speaks to me, he sort of asked about it a couple of times. I said, because of, he sort of asked again, because of, and then they realized, and the room turned.
Oh.
It was bad. It was bad. And the team basically collectively said, that has to get scrubbed. And And it did. And
oh, hang on. I was thinking like 3 episodes simultaneously.
How many of your rooms go like that?
You're making it sound worse than it was. Maybe
Let's give you a list.
It's amazing with the I call it the God hand of the editor. You scrub away the bad bits, and you cannot tell anything ever went wrong in that room. Like if I don't tell you which room it is, there's no way you'll ever find it. And I'm not going to
So when nobody says goodbye in the outro.
It's just John would make it 4 different voices.
So as we've mentioned, obviously there's a lot of different puzzles that go into each of the episodes, but there is evidently, listening to the episodes as an avid listener, varying levels of research that go into both individual themes and puzzles.
Yeah,
How much actual research and planning goes into each episode? Or on an individual level, who actually plans and who doesn't?
I think you'll get a different answer depending on which of us responds to this.
I assume this would be the case.
I'll kick off. So I think in contrast to John's approach, where it's sort of putting stuff down and then getting those connections to come in, I need to give myself restrictions in order to get the creative process going. So it depends very much on the theme. I tend to lean towards historical themes or things that have some sort of pop culture hook because I've got a frame of reference that immediately gives me some kind of restriction to play in. So I did an episode that was set in Johannes Gutenberg's printing press. I knew I had a location, I had a time frame, I had certain elements. I hate doing puzzle types that are more modern than the setting that they're in. So I hate doing Morse code in Egyptian rooms, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And those kinds of restrictions, for me, really helps drive that creative process rather than the sandbox, which is awful.
Yeah, if you give a man a choice of anything, he can't choose anything. Oh, no, that's not the quote. Damn it.
But yeah, it depending on the context, I might go a bit extra. So for one episode we did with Dave Spire and PG Law for The Wicker Man, I rewatched the original Wicker Man just so I knew little references and things that I could sneak in. They didn't know. They didn't pick up on it. They didn't give a shit. People rarely do. But I know, and I appreciate that. Like the trivia track on an Edgar Wright film is one of my favorite things to witness. Like all those little subtle things they drop in.
Jamie, is this the terrifying moment when we realize that you, who were already producing the deepest, richest rooms that we have, are actually making much deeper, richer ones we just haven't noticed?
There are references that nobody's gotten.
That might be the most depressing thing that happens to me all week. And today, Jamie, all of my fish died.
Oh, no. Well, I'm happy to make your week even worse, John. Thank you for yeah, I mean, it means that a lot of my rooms tend to be less abstract. I think often, John, you say that the rooms that I do could be a real escape room because usually they're limited because I've put these limitations on them because I'm thinking of it as a physical space. I tend to write them as a D&D adventure. So it's a list of what can I interact with, what can I examine, and it's things like that. I've started using like a reverse question set to get the answers. So I start off with, what's the goal? Get the key. Where's the key? It's in the false bottom. How do I open the false bottom? You unlock this lock. What's the combination? It's this. And working backwards from that, I flesh out the structure of the room. The rest of it then is just confetti.
Just real quick on the where's the key front. Above the door, you just didn't look at it. That came up in an episode once.
Oh, it comes up in a future episode as well, and you can hear the collective, oh my God.
So I'd like to bring something up here. Brief segue, very brief. The issue of the find. So one challenge that we have is that in a real-life escape room, your own observation and curiosity and skill at finding stuff that's just already in the room is quite a key factor. Varies from room to room. Some rooms it's really crucial. Some rooms it's not really a thing. Now, we have to simulate that in the podcast. You know, you're in a room, there's a desk, there's some drawers, there's a table, there's a mirror. Or you walk in through the door, rub your feet on the mat, and there's a desk, and it turns out the key's under the mat. The line between something being in a place that you have to specifically pluck out of your head and said, I would like to look under X, rather than I look at the table. You know, if the key is taped under the table, if they look at the table, do they get the key? Open question. And I struggle with that a lot, where like the team's sort of looking roughly at the right thing. And I'm like, have you asked the right question? Whereas in a physical escape room, they just find it or they don't. It's one of the sort of troubles of the genre, this little genre that we've kind of made up.
This is where I think the strength is on that blending of the role play game aspect of it. As we're not just games masters, we're almost dungeon masters. Because it's through that audio signpost in that people will maybe clock to think, or at least get them in that mindset that they need to ask those questions, because they're not just Jamie with a microphone playing a game. I am in this space. I can interact with everything I want to. I can lick the walls. People have done. It's that kind of thing. They do it for laughs, but you can interact with everything.
For example, you can interact with Da Vinci himself. Take it away, Mike.
One of my favorite characters.
I want to know Da Vinci. Cool cat. What about your research?
Yeah, I don't know how does that approach vary with you both?
I tend to be a little bit more last minute. I won't lie. Shut up. Yeah, and I'm sure it shines through. But and every time it happens, I'm there sweating, with 7 minutes to go. In fact, sometimes 7 minutes over, still writing part of the puzzle. Thinking, I hope I get this right. And most of the time it is. But then we get to the moment in the episode where the team say, "Is it 14?" And I'm like, "It should be, but it's not." Oh no! Oh no! And just in case that can be edited out, Mike will then chime up and say, "He's done it. He's done it again."
I think that's part of the beauty of the kind of podcast that we do, is that like, even when it doesn't go well, it's funny, and the players know that I can have a laugh with it. It doesn't suddenly fall flat, and that just makes for a good episode.
There's while we're all very different, there is a unity of tone regarding that. Like, if you're hosting a room and it goes wrong, if you're in the Infinite Escape Room, it is you are honor bound, one, to include it in full in the edit. There is no cutting out your own incompetence, especially unless it isn't funny, in which case cut it. But like, if it gets a laugh, then that stays in. And two, you must embrace your own failure.
Yeah. Yep.
100%.
I think one of my favorite things that comes up a lot in your podcasts is, I don't know, Mike here. And then some sort of reasoning for the shenanigans that just happened minutes prior, or the following shenanigans.
Oh, I'm glad. I think my favorite times to do editor interjections are where I've snuck in a traitor into a puzzle.
Oh my goodness. Or is that all traitors?
Your traitor's phase.
Phase? John, I'm going to spoil it for you. It never ended.
He's playing the long game.
Oh, shit, the long game.
There's one amongst us right now.
Yeah, one of you is a mole.
I haven't even hit record. This is all just part of my delirium, pretending to be a podcast host.
Mike, what's your process?
I sit somewhere between Jamie and John. I think I'm definitely less organised. It tends to be whatever has recently been interesting to me. So if I've been reading a book on Da Vinci, then
the Rotary Club Sex Dungeon, do you want to...
Well, that's the thing. So if I've been reading a book on Da Vinci, we get a Da Vinci themed room. If I've been reading a book on the home front and like Dad's Army, I'll doing a Dad's Army shed themed room. If, however, something like the Rotary Club comes up, I'm just like, I don't even want to research them. I just want to cast them. I just want to create a completely fit. It's in the same way that I've never tried to impersonate Heston Blumenthal's voice because I prefer the character that we've created for him.
That's not what he sounds like. Really?
That's the thing. I have no idea. He might.
I genuinely thought that was an attempted impersonation.
I do like how often the characters, no matter where they're from, time period, geography, that most of them end up sounding northern. And it's beautiful. I love it. And I roll with it. But yeah, that seems to be a thing that's happened.
I think, strangely, I've heard your guys' version of Heston Blumenthal more than I've actually heard Heston's. So in my head, that's just how Heston sounds.
Yeah. Heston is our favourite.
I don't think this is a question, but I'm going to throw it in there anyway. Obviously, you guys have a myriad of like recurring characters. Is Heston your favorite? Are there any that you have that are sort of in the bank that you're looking to bring back?
Do you know what? We went through a phase for a while. We did this series with this. It wasn't even an intentional series, but we had a recurring robot called Marv.
Oh, yeah.
And I quite enjoyed everyone's, because he never said anything. He just sort of led you on. He was a bit like the man in the blue suit in Half-Life, who's kind of always one bit ahead of you. I mean, except that he doesn't like kill you at the end of the game. But
Spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, the stone guy in the business suit is the baddie. You didn't see that coming. But yeah, I quite like the sort of, you got everyone's sort of idea of what was behind him, and then the next person's idea of what was behind him, whereas Heston's a maniac. So I quite liked that. That was sort of charming.
Yeah, Merv did make a comeback a few years later. He helped some of the solvers like defend against a group of like Shaolin monks a couple of years after he was put to pasture. And we did a similar thing with Gavin the demonic bunny, who ended up, his corpse ended up in hell. And then about a couple of years later, the team went back into hell, into his massive corpse to do a puzzle. I quite like the idea of doing the throwbacks to old characters years afterwards and revisiting those old rooms.
Oh, I miss your Winnie the Pooh, Jamie.
He was there once, and I think once only. I'm going to get
the voice.
Can we have a touch of Winnie the Pooh?
I'm afraid I don't have enough honey to do these things. Mead is the only thing that will satisfy me now, Christopher Robin.
It is so good. I remember the first time I heard Winnie the Pooh, and I can't remember what the sentence was, but I'm pretty sure it was about him killing himself. And I was just like, I never anticipated this from Winnie the Pooh. But
I mean, who has more pathos than Winnie the Pooh?
Didn't he just lose his copyright?
That was the reason.
Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, so you can fully have it.
A dark bit of like intersection there. So you know the guys who made Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, horror film. So they were going to make. I think they are making another one called Peter Pan, Neverland Nightmare.
Have you seen the trailer?
Cast in it.
Wait, what?
You
got cast in it.
Cast in it. Yeah, I was going to be a very small role in it, and then they did like this massive rewrite in that scene. I think didn't exist anymore, so it didn't happen.
Well,
but you
that's
almost
heartbreaking.
Yeah, they were kind of jerks.
Were you going to be Tinkerbell?
Oh,
I believe I was going to be Tall Man. No, sorry, no. Fourth character title was Creepy Tall Man.
Oh, fun.
Typecast.
Descriptive. Wonder what that character entailed.
The Infinite Escape Room, by name, is infinite. So will your kids be inheriting this in the future?
Mine's already been on it.
Oh my god, what?
Yeah, Grace has been on. She introduced an episode. I'm pretty sure she
really?
Yeah, said welcome to the Infinite Escape Room. Yeah, I think she did. She was like 4 maybe. So it's a while ago now, but I'm pretty certain she introduces an episode, yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
Really sweet. Oh, and she's done some sound effects as well for one of your episodes.
Yes. Oh yes, there was the one where you were miniaturized and you were in a little girl's room. And you had to like get through the carpet and into the doll's house and stuff like that. And she did the little girl.
Oh, first thought was that you'd done an uncanny voice changer, but actually you used your daughter, which was much less creepy. Yeah. So she's been on the show. So yeah, I will absolutely.
I think that given that we're all dads, I think at some point it would be really fun to have a kid-friendly episode of the Infinite Escape Room, because we use that explicit tag graciously, generously throughout the runtime. It would be so fun to see us try to rein it in, and obviously the episode would be filled with bleeps and clown honks and stuff to cover up where we don't
slipped up.
Amy, this is a beautiful idea.
I also think it would be really fun to just give your kids the podcast for an episode and give them an escape room and just not have any sort of interjection at all. Just let them roll with it.
See the chaos that ensues.
I actually think kids are quite good at escape rooms. We had a few teams of kids in, but there's an age thing here. So whenever people brought young kids, like between, say, 9 and 11, they'd actually be quite good. They're very observant. Nothing gets past them. They're actually quite logical in the way things come together for them. And because they don't have a ton of life experience, they don't have like weird expectations of stuff.
Yeah, but it makes them a pain in the ass for performing magic tricks too.
Yeah, I bet it does.
Yeah, I can see that double lift. I can see the thread. Yeah, we don't care.
Shut up, Charlie.
Suspend your disbelief.
But once they hit puberty, it's all over. They're rubbish. The two worst teams ever to attempt the bank job. And the bank job was not a hard room. Mike did it on his own, which was hilarious to watch.
Is that a reflection on Mike or the room?
Pass.
Don't play well with others. I bite.
But the worst teams were actually no. The worst team was teachers and cops. But apart from those two, the worst teams were teenagers. Absolutely terrible. Can't wait.
I think
deeply narcissistic.
from like 12 until 15, they are very likely to break things.
Yep.
So it made it so I could no longer run teams for teenagers and they'd have to be with an adult. And it would just be like little things, but it's little things that also cost a lot to make or are really difficult to fix very quickly. And it's like, oh, well, thank you for smashing that painting. That was actually quite important to this game. I now have to close my game for the rest of the day because I don't have a spare.
Because we never anyone would do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or someone put their foot through a fake door. And I just stood there going, oh my God, that has been running for 4 years straight. And now I need to pull the whole backing off this door and remake it. Shit. Yeah. And it was because one of them trapped another person into a different room. And the only logical thing was to kick the door through. I'm glad it was me. I'm glad it was me that did it too. They did it too, and not one of my game operators. It was fine. It got fixed in the end of the day, but teenagers.
I do not envy you guys as fathers.
Yeah, you will soon have your own troublemakers. Enjoy that.
I can barely look after myself. I am a liberty on my own. Never mind a little sprog running around.
That feeling does not change when you have a sprog. There's very much replaced by feeling of, wait, I'm responsible for this?
Shit.
Uh-oh, there's a little me that I also have to take care of.
And it's just like me. This was a mistake.
It's using my words and actions against me.
God damn, you inherited my sense of humor, you bastard.
One day, you will inherit my escape room puzzle.
This leads perfectly on to the next question, which is, if you could go back to when you started the podcast and give yourself advice or change something on how you did, what would it be, if anything?
I have a list.
Starting the podcast, for one.
I've got one for puzzle creation, and I think, Mike, we discussed this, so I think you probably agree, but I'm interested in the rest of your thoughts as well. Once you've made your puzzle, however you've made it, take it and then take one thing out. Take it one level of complexity down, because as its creator, the links it requires people to make and the leaps it requires them to make are intuitive to you in a way that they will not be, no matter how straightforward it seems, they will not be intuitive to the team in the same way they are to you. So that extra bit you put in because you thought, oh, it might be too easy, I better make it harder. Our podcast has been too easy once in 350 episodes.
That's Errol, Errol Elamir, sort of top piece of puzzle creation advice as well for escape rooms. And actually, like, I think Jamie, the last episode we recorded where you had that really elegant shield puzzle, or some of the discussion afterwards was, should it have had an extra sort of layer of complexity? And I think the the was no, actually, it was absolutely perfect how it was.
Yeah, I mean, you came that puzzle in about 30 seconds, though, Mike.
It's perfect because he nailed it.
You almost Rain Man did, just like, done. That was the main part of my episode. Oh, no.
Ramptious. It's why we fucked up the rest.
Unfortunately, you didn't see the key.
Maybe before I come in with my list, do you want to jump in first?
I think I'll echo John's sentiment that it's always more difficult than you think it's going to be. And like when I first started doing puzzles on the regular for the podcast, my wife would play test them, which is great. She'd be like, yeah, I've done this. She'd give some pointers. The trouble is we've been together 2 decades plus. She knows my brain inside and out. Of course, she's going to get my puzzles. They're going to be too easy for her. I bring them to the podcast, and then everyone hits a brick wall because I've added too much to it because I think that it's too easy. And yeah, at the risk of sounding a bit too trite, I wish I joined earlier because I'm having a blast.
Oh,
I wish I'd slid into those DMs years before.
My Doc Martens has never been the same.
I'll pay you back for those one day.
Okay, so my list, I was thinking about this. It was more like advice on, we went back to start the podcast again. What would my advice be? And it's a lot of it's advice that I do give people. So I run another podcast, but I've helped a few other people get theirs started, not through any qualification, I hasten to point out, but it's that thing where other people go, oh, you do a podcast. I want to start a podcast. How do I do this? And then you kind of go, okay, here's some of the things to know. But my first bit is, oh my God, find a less niche hole to fall down than we did. Like if you want to make the big bucks and the big listens, by God, find something with broad appeal in an industry that's not desperately choking under ever increasing costs and rents and things.
Well, I'd also say that the trouble with that is that if you want things with broad appeal, you'll find that someone already got there, and they have a team of producers, and they have a network backing, and they have ad spots, and they have all of that stuff. You could choose a more profitable pond, but you will find yourself a very tiny fish.
Basically, what we should have done is we should have been doing the first crypto podcast or something, or like the 20th crypto podcast, because there are some people to exploit in there. We could be conning them. We could be doing, I don't know, how do you do crypto scams? We could be doing crypto scams or something. That would have been, some big dollar. We could be retiring on crypto scam money right now. I'd also say,
is your advice get into crypto?
When you say it like that,
there's still an opportunity for tier coin.
There it is.
Oh man, there probably are some like soft brain people who would.
Once the economy tanks, those puzzle pins would be worth a fortune.
I need one of these Infinite Escape Room puzzle pins. I am starting a pin collection, and I need to get one. I'm gonna subscribe to the Patreon anyway because I want to listen to the extra stuff.
All the
specifically the unedited podcasts, apparently,
regardless of patron status.
It's not how this works. I need to support you guys. I know how financially viable podcasts are.
When we had people on the show, we've sent them pins. So come on the show and we can send you a pin.
Yay!
That's the loophole that.
All you have to do is give us your address.
Ruh-roh. This reminds me of just completely off topic, but somewhat on topic. Have you seen the Duolingo merch thing where people have bought like plushies of the Duolingo bird, and it says, thank you so much for supporting us, thank you for buying our merch, but just so you know, if you do break your Duolingo streak, we now know where you live. Which is sensational.
I like how much they've just doubled down on being so aggressive to their fan base.
It's fantastic. The Duolingo social media accounts are sensational. Absolutely fantastic. Absolute hellhole, but they're great.
So back to my advice for past Mike. My God, choose something easier to produce. But you don't have to write a motherfucking escape room every single week. And while we're at it, don't make your podcast weekly. Don't nail yourself to that mast of misery.
We figured this out after episode 1.
So wise. So wise.
After a week of crying and zero production.
Oh my God. I think the first year was absolute murder in weekly because it was just me and Ben. That first year, I think it was just me for the first couple of months, and then it was me and Ben, and that was absolute murder. But everybody being like, we've hit a rhythm now, which really works for us. But ye God. Yeah. Now to the positives. Earlier on, recognize the value of just having a recurrent cast and familiarity and chemistry. So we had this kind of rotating thing, which was really good from like an us perspective and kind of circulating people through the show and getting lots of voices in. We really felt our way towards as being that there's a core group of people who, if we've got them on, we've got guaranteed kind of chemistry and we know how they bounce off each other. And like listening back, it's fun to listen to.
It's nice to sort of get to know you guys as well. As weird as that sounds from like an audio perspective, you almost sort of get to know characters that you portray on the episodes, and you sort of familiarize yourself.
There's no character.
For legal reasons, I think you should say otherwise.
It's interesting you bring that up because I often feel, and I try to fight, hopefully it's the right thing to do, I often feel, is there a danger of this being too in-jokey? And I find myself like kind of trying to sort of like call back to things or explain them or sort of reference back to stuff that has happened before, just in case there's like people who are new or new-ish and going, like I need to put context in here to make it work for you.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a nice nod to the people that have been here for a while.
This is true.
It's a nice sort of, as you say, it's an in-joke. It's nice for you to acknowledge you've been around for a while and this is just for you.
This is expected.
You're in the circle. This is for you.
Yeah, it's part of the law. We've built up our own law.
Unfortunately, you are criminally liable And this is part of the legal procedure.
I think the podcast does a good job of being drop in, drop outable. Like you can just pick a random episode, even in the middle of a run, like with a Rotary Club. You could just pick a random one of those. You're given the context of the story that happens before, and it's just a bunch of idiots having a laugh in an escape room.
That was, I remember, part of Mike's original pitch when we had that long conversation that he's completely forgotten that we had, which is nice. When we talked about that, that was part of his pitch. His pitch was like, it has to be episodic. It has to have everything you need in one episode and also have art at the same time. And I think we've always kind of held on to that, even though the format's changed lots of times. And now, in some respects, is very much back to how it was at the beginning, but with a different crew. We've held on to that sort of core principle that each episode stands alone, but is part of an overarching thing.
There's a reason to like come back to it if you're wanting to be a part of a series, or you can just drop in every now and again when your Spotify reminds you that you're a podcast that you can listen to, sort of thing.
I think what's nice about that as well is even if you do get to an episode where there is a callback, it almost makes you want to go back to listen to the original context for that. Like there's a few times where I've been like, a very strange reference, I wonder what that's in relation to. And I'll go back and like search for where it came from.
Yes. Who the fuck is Heston Blumenthal? Oh God. Once you've opened up that particular Pandora's box. Yeah.
84 episodes that you have to listen to get the lore behind Heston.
Why do Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and somebody else all sound exactly the same?
I now want to see you do a Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael episodes over the next couple of years, and they've all got the same voice as Da Vinci.
You were talking about the artists, not the Ninja Turtles.
I am talking
that's
about
where my brain went as well. Oh, if there was an episode where you had those people as artists, but as you went through the episode, you discovered that it was actually in the sewers and they were the Ninja Turtles and not the original.
That's a great way then.
Quickly, John, drink more grog.
Write that down.
That's perfect. We could invite them onto the show and then see the horror on Corey's face as he realizes he's a guest on his own idea.
Oh goodness.
And see how we've murdered it.
I can't wait for every trope that I've complained about to be in this episode. It's going to go back to the original theme tune. It's going to have a key above the door.
Maths puzzle.
And Pythagoras straight off the cuff. You get into this room, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Good luck. Shit.
What do you do? I choose seppuku. I'm not getting involved in this. Good night, everybody. I'm logging off.
I have a calculator around my neck, so...
Can I end this thought on a positive note?
No.
Cheers. Back on the advice. I'm going to do it anyway, John. Okay. Don't sweat the breaths, because the more you do it with people, the better everybody's microphone discipline gets. And suddenly you don't need to worry about the breaths as much, and you don't need to worry about the ums as much, because people just get gradually more confident. And then eventually that becomes kind of like sort of punctuation. Like the breaths and the ums become a punctuation that adds sort of rhythm to sentences, and you get a bit more forgiving with it. And the other one is make something you love with people that you love, because that way it doesn't really matter if anybody listens. The fact that we have listeners has always been a bit of a surprise to me. But an absolute delight. The thing is, we make a show that, I make a show. I hope we all share this thought. Make a show that I really enjoy making. I really enjoy doing it with recording with my friends. I really enjoy collaborating with Jon and Jamie. I think we all bring sort of various strengths to it, and we make it a sort of fun collaborative project, and it's just sort of still fun to do. And then, like I say, I love the whole thing, and then the fact that people listen is a real bonus. And that's kind of, I guess that'd be my bit of advice, is just don't worry too much about people listening. Always sort of record and edit with an ear to the listener, but ultimately make the thing that you want to make rather than what you think people want to hear.
I love like the podcasting there.
Yeah, that's love you, Corey, just to remind you.
Thanks. This is the same on our end. Like at the end of the day, rather selfishly, this podcast is just allowing me to reach out to people that I feel like I would enjoy talking to, and spending an hour, 2 hours just geeking out about things that I thoroughly enjoy and love talking about. And if at the end of the day somebody finds this remotely interesting and also wants to listen along, perfect. If I can help them with recommendations, if I can help them with information or education, great. If they just want a laugh or an escape, fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's just a way for me to have fun and meet new friends and geek out.
No, this podcast allowed me to fall back in love with something I fell out of love with, which is nice.
Directional padlocks.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love... Well, it's made it to the point that I can now touch a game that I wrote a year ago and really confidently bring it back to life, which I'm now doing, which is lovely. And I don't think I would have been able to do that when I was still full brain in escape room mode. And it's inspired me to go, actually, I'm going to change this puzzle and I'm going to rewrite this. And do you know what? I'm going to sell it again. And it's going to be a great game. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's been nice to drag you back in kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I know.
There's definitely there's something about the sort of the show, the sort of the scratchy nature of it, where you know, even though, and we didn't actually talk about prep time. Interestingly, I reckon for a full episode, from sitting down, starting writing to finishing the edit, is about 10 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think I am roughly. It ebbs and flows.
Mm.
But in that time, you're going to create something imperfect, 100%, and you're going to see its imperfections found by other people live, and then listened to by yet other people, possibly forever.
Why do you think I spent so long on the edit?
Yeah. There's something healthy about accepting there's going to be mistakes here, and I'll try and make a better one next time, or run out of time again, maybe that. But I think there's something healthy about that. I always, well, not always, but I sometimes find myself thinking that there's a monk somewhere in the mountains, and they make these incredible pieces of art out of powder, colored powder. They're very detailed, and they take days to make. And as soon as they've finished it, they wipe it all away and begin again.
It's called a mandala.
Is it?
Yeah, they make incredible art, and just... I only know that because of Orange is the New Black. There you go. There's a yoga teacher on it that's like, think of your time here as a mandala. It wipes away as soon as you leave.
Except it doesn't, because the legal system records it forever and will cripple you in your future life using this information and give you no sensible route out of it.
Just let me have the nice room, please.
You were trying to and, I thought, can't have that.
How dare you?
John said, Yoga Jones, shut up.
And this is why I fear unedited episodes.
Mate, you're going to fear the edit on this. I just watched the timer tick past 2.5 hours.
It's fine, we've had longer. Editor Corey here. Bet you're glad I managed to shave 45 minutes off of this episode.
Corey's in his pajamas already, and I'm not sure he got changed, but he's already there.
Confident declared to my
Nice and
wife
cozy.
earlier, don't worry, this will be much shorter than normal. And she looks at me with a kind of,
I also said a very similar thing.
I agree, though. I think when you get lost in sort of... I mean, it's happening right now. When you get lost in the enjoyment of an episode, like, it's so easy to just forget that it's even a podcast.
okay, so
I only saw the pop-up there.
Just
I also saw that
image of an RIP QuickFire with a segue in front of it, like an actual segue, yeah, the kind that famously went up a cliff.
The show notes are going to be almost as chaotic as the episode.
You knew what you bargained for.
Okay, let's calm down.
I can't wait to put a precursor at the start of this episode that just says, sorry. That's it.
Editor Corey here. Sorry.
On with the show. This has been my last episode because, goddamn, this has broken me.
Obviously, as an audio podcast, you're not restricted to a budget or really to the real world at all. But if you did have an unlimited budget to create a room, what would you build?
My perfect escape room would be a faithful recreation of the Goonies from the point they enter the Fratelli's restaurant by the lighthouse all the way up to when they get One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship out of the cave and into the sea. And it would be the plot and the everything in that film. There's puzzles already inherent in that they've got built in. You can just add in a couple more. That experience would be incredible. There's a dead body in the ice cream fridge. There's the puzzle with the pipes and the wishing well. I'm all about that. Get some paid actors in for the Fratellis to chase you halfway through. Perfection.
Are we actually allowing the guests to set sail at the end as well, or?
Well, if there's no budget, we can pay for the liability insurance, so absolutely.
Perfect. And the RNLI.
They're always on standby in that little code, just in case.
Amy, your new room's going really well, but Border Force have some questions. It turns out there's some smuggling happening.
Immersion is our top priority.
Yeah, I think I'd just hire Heston fucking Blumenthal as a GM, to be honest, and just get him to burst in randomly on rooms and be like, "Hey, mate, that's the fucking Blumenthal. I've got a little love for you." That would be, I think that's all I'd really want out of an escape room. In fact, I'd probably have him do it in a series of shit escape rooms. So, like, go and find, there's a really bad franchise one in, I'd probably have him just randomly burst in, do Heston Blumenthal stuff. Not the one that we did, John. There's a worse one.
Oh, wow. We have an idea for a TV show with no audience, but a great idea. It's Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, but with escape rooms.
Ooh,
that sounds great.
Who would be Ramsay in this instance? Who would you give the responsibility of being the expert?
See, I think the responsibility of being the expert would probably fall with Helena.
Thank you. I will take that.
Because it sounds like you actually know what you're doing. I, as a posh English white guy, sound like I know what I'm doing. And have zero qualifications.
I'm more than happy to be a Gordon Ramsay in this position. Okay, so what are the plans for the future? Can you give us any teasers?
Survive.
Yeah.
Just not be cancelled.
I don't know. What's happened in the past is that we have a sort of a phase of, what do you call it, development? But I don't know, a sort of a phase of something. And even though no one has declared the beginning of this phase, we sort of know when we've reached its end, and we'll have a chat and, think about the future and kick around some new ideas. And then Mike will go away and actually figure it out and then tell us what's happening. And we'll go, that's a great idea we've all had. It goes through phase of evolution. I think we would be lying if we said that we've ever planned that far into the future, apart from stuff like figuring out a Christmas episode a fair bit before, just to give us time to get that locked in. Stuff like that, yeah. So, for the listeners, Mike has, during my very eloquent and thoughtful speech, found another AI image which has a gravestone with R.I.P. Quickfire editor Corey in flames, surrounded by segways.
I think we need to release all of these individually.
They're already in the show notes.
So yeah, plans for the future, don't know, and it's always been that way.
I mean, we've only recently, with this latest format, gotten into a position where we can record episodes more than 1 week in advance.
Yeah.
Because up until very recently, we were recording episodes on a Wednesday to publish to Patreon on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And fatigue sets in. Yeah, so this new system we've got to let us breathe a little bit.
Jamie, you were recording them on a Wednesday for a Sunday. I was recording them on a Tuesday for a Sunday, but not the Tuesday you think.
Yeah. Occasionally we get a message on the WhatsApp group going, how late can I feasibly push this to Patreon before they start cancelling?
Has happened.
So there's permanent eye damage from just rolling them so much, like spirals etched into the outside. Yeah, I agree. No idea. Every year I say I don't think we'll be doing it again next year, and then it carries on being fun, and we find a way to make it work for us. So yeah, let's see what happens. Anything could happen. We bring somebody else into the production team. One of us could.
I want to do
break a foot.
Burning segways in a graveyard.
Something that I've always wanted us to do is a live show. I think that would be amazing. At an escape room conference or a games con or something.
Edinburgh.
Have us doing a live episode of the Infinite Escape Room. I think that would be chaos.
I had this exact thought when because I just recently did Edinburgh Fringe hosting, obviously magic consulting and stuff like that. So I assisted on a show up there for the month, and there was a lot of D&D based shows. And I thought, wow, it would be incredibly fun to have an Infinite Escape Room episode as a live show. And then I realized just how incredibly niche a D&D escape room campaign is in comparison to the generalized world of D&D. But I agree, it would be so fun. So fun to hear it live and in person and uneditable.
Yeah. Well, I know the show The Dark Room.
The Dark Room is sensational.
I've never seen it. Really would like to see it, but that it's got, as far as I can tell, has a similar vibe. That sort of point and click text-based adventure, in sort of the mechanics, but in a live setting. So there's an audience for it,
and we've done something similar before.
We have. I was going to bring this up, Michael. You absolute motherfucker.
Oh, sorry, John. We've not done anything similar before. Unless I've forgotten it, John.
Once upon a time, Michael brought me and Ben onto a show. A show that he's prepared at length because we always have prepared, as I said, 10 hours, right? And Mike said at the beginning of the show, here's an imaginary box full of props. These are the rough props. You have 15 minutes to design an escape room. Good luck. And me and Ben had to design escape rooms in 15 minutes. And then Mike, because obviously Mike's been there for that process, kind of not so much facilitating as heckling from the sidelines. At that point, Mike then goes and gets his lovely lady wife, Laura, and her voice just appears in our ears suddenly saying, "Hi, guys." And we have to present our escape room. And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. On the one hand, like the little bit of me that's always kind of observing things from afar and going, that was good. I mean, you're an idiot, but that was good. Is thinking, okay, this actually works. But the bit of me that's in the moment is in hell.
That was not what I was thinking about, John. I was thinking about when we did the conference piece. The
live one. Oh, the corporate gig. Oh, my God.
That was fun.
So you guys, as listeners, any listeners out there will have very little awareness of this, apart from the fact that we've referenced it a couple of times. We got asked by an old friend of mine who I worked with on tour years ago, who now works for a mobile game company called Triple Dot. And they have these like Friday afternoon Zoom-based meetups for work after the working week. And they're meant to be a fun thing. And he'd been asked to organize one of them. And he was like, what the fuck do I do on Zoom with like 50 people who are in different countries who want to go and get dinner now for fun? And he asked us if we'd do a live hosted escape room. And we said yes, without realizing what we were getting into. And we named a fee that was too low. Anyway, we decided to set this at a video game conference. And the way we did it was there were like 4 or 5 teams and 4 or 5 hosts, and the hosts would be rotated to join the teams. So the teams would stay in their little breakout room, and each host on a timer would be rotated around to pitch their room to the next group. So each group did every room, and each room gave them a piece of a map, wasn't it? And with the map, they could then solve the puzzle. So yeah, that was wild. We did a dress rehearsal with our friends and family that was an absolute disaster. We completely screwed up the breakout rooms. I think it was a fiasco. But the actual execution went pretty well.
I think they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I had fun.
We've never heard from them again.
Stunned silence. So there's opportunities there for future live things, so long as we find the time, effort, ambition, talent, and audience.
Lisa and David Spira, if you are listening, Recon 2025 online, here is an idea.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, shit.
There's an
A
idea.
live escape room.
We see the caliber of people that attend and speak at Recon, and then at the bottom of the Discord list, there's us.
I think, though, you could have a really good screaming at the radio element to this, where like you have an invited panel of guests who are solving the room, but everyone else, at the conference is in the Discord or whatever it is. I don't know how these things are pitched, but like can see it, and the audience can type in when they've solved it. Not the answer, just when they've solved it. So that as you struggle and squirm, as you, the expert, run completely dry, you see one after another, dozens of people.
Done it.
It's like a real-time YouTube comment section.
Yeah. I think that would be a beautiful car crash that would end careers.
And that's exactly why we're pitching it. On a side note, you guys really need to come to Edinburgh Fringe. It's incredible.
It's a long-term ambition to get to Edinburgh. I've never been. I really want to go.
Oh, please do come up next year. Like, let's blast out some escape rooms. Let's organize a few days to get some stuff done. Even record a live episode would be super fun. And
we
yeah,
could
just
do-
Let's do it.
to see
We
some
could-
shows.
We could do another review of Room.
Oh goodness!
Ooh.
Oh, not another John hates a room. Oh no!
Imagine
I hope
That was the room we
I-
just. Let me tell you about this Alexa puzzle from 2 years ago.
what if you did an infinite escape room in a real room where you're just describing what you see, and it's a legitimate room that you're solving, and nobody's created the puzzles.
Oh, get it extra
That's an
meta.
interesting idea.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work, but maybe you have the GM in the room and you're asking them. It's like an audio puzzle within an actual puzzle.
We will think on this.
Yeah, Edinburgh trip I am 110% up for.
Yeah, it's so worth it. I mean, financially, not worth it, but memories, worth it.
Spiritual.
It's
So to round this all up, where can our listeners find you?
Where are we these days?
Hey.
It's literally listed in the show notes. Come on, gents.
We've taken down some of those because of bigots running the platforms.
That's
Yes,
fair.
we are. So social
I'll remove
media.
X.
Shut up, Jamie. My car is shaking.
So we're on Facebook and Instagram at The Infinite Escape Room. Catch us on all the different podcast channels. Predominantly, I'm guessing like Apple and Spotify seems to be where most people tend to go. And there's also the website, theinfiniteescaperoom.com. We've also got a Patreon for the inner circle of listeners who want to listen to the chaos of unedited episodes and extra bonus stuff, which is patreon.com/theinfiniteescaperoom. Have I missed anything?
Onlyfans.com/theinfiniteescape-room.
Coming soon. But
I'll set it up.
when you listen to this, comment on this episode and let us know if you'd like us to set up an OnlyFans with
There's that social media professional.
lock-based nipple
I am
tassels.
commenting so many times on my own podcast.
Maybe should we just do it and make it incredibly unsexy photos, the three of us?
The problem is, though, Mike, is that there's a fetish for everything. Like, you make it unsexy, you'll find an audience who will find it sexy.
Perfect. I'm
And
charging
they'll,
for
and,
it.
they'll, and then they'll pay you top dollar.
I'm actively creating this account now.
No, I'm sexy. I just don't
Monster
know.
have I born.
Okay, I'm going to round this off by saying thank you guys so much for being on here. I knew this was going to be one of the most enjoyable episodes to record just because you guys are absolute chaos and carnage in the best way. Yeah, it is very much reciprocated in my gratitude because as an avid listener, Infinite Escape Room podcast, it's been surreal to both hear and see you guys not as an actual podcast, which I can imagine is the same for many people listening to us. Yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful, and I can't thank you guys enough for being on. And yeah, you extended the invitation earlier. We'd absolutely love to be on the Infinite Escape Room at some point if you'll have us. But as always, if you have listened to this and you have enjoyed it, please do leave a review. Please do check out the Infinite Escape Room on both Apple and Spotify. And if you didn't enjoy it, we've been the Infinite Escape Room. And
There
we'll
it
see
is.
you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy bye now.
Penis end.
Bye.